If you're buying property, your title document might be hiding a massive roadblock. Two land categories, MRL and Bumi Lots, quietly reject foreign money. Missing these red flags is a costly mistake that traps unsuspecting buyers. Today, I'm showing you exactly what terms to look for on a title so you don't get caught out. Selamat datang. I'm Brian, 10 years foreign in Malaysia. Researching the property maze for myself. Sharing what I find, one episode at a time. Picture this, you found it. 3 bedrooms, garden, the right street. Offer accepted. You hand over a 5-figure booking fee. Sign, gone. And you tell your family that night. 3 weeks later, your lawyer calls. There's a stamp on the title, just 2 words. And those 2 words mean the property cannot be sold to you. Not now, not next year, not at any price. The deal is dead, and the fight for your deposit is only beginning. 2 categories of Malaysian property do this to foreign buyers. They're not the same, though they get talked about as if they are. Let me show you how to tell them apart and how to spot them on the title before you pay. So, first, the 2 categories of Malaysian property that will reject your money no matter how much you bring. What is Malay Reserved Land? Let's start with the bigger of the 2, Malay Reserved Land. In Malay, Tanah Rizab Melayu. Same thing, 2 names. You'll see both on listings, on title documents, sometimes on the same page. When I first started researching this for myself, I assumed it was a price tag thing. Pay enough, navigate the right channels, find an exception. It isn't. This is land formerly reserved for Malay ownership under enactments going back to 1913 and protected today in the Federal Constitution itself, Article 89. Here's what reserved means in practice. The title can only be held by a Malay person, defined broadly as someone Muslim, habitually speaking Malay, and following Malay custom. It cannot be transferred to a non-Malay. It cannot be leased to one. It cannot even be used as security for a loan made by a non-Malay lender. For a foreign buyer, it is completely closed, not difficult, not expensive, closed. The category itself was designed that way. Now, here's the part that catches buyers most. There is no price escape from Malay Reserved Land. None. I've watched foreigners assume, over and over, that with enough money, or the right context, or just the right lawyer, the rule bends. It doesn't. The protection is constitutional. Even a state government can't simply release MRL into the open market. The process requires another piece of MRL of equivalent value to be put in its place. A swap, signed off by both state and federal authorities. Rare, and not something you can use for an individual transaction. So for your purposes, MRL is permanent. The deal is not happening. Walk away. Second, the Bumi Lot. Same idea, different mechanics entirely. What is a Bumi Lot? Bumi Lots are something else entirely, and here's where I had to slow down in my own research, because in casual conversation, the 2 get treated as the same thing. They're not. A Bumi Lot isn't a special category of land. It's a sale condition attached to ordinary units inside a development. Here's how it works. When a developer launches a residential project, state government policy usually requires a percentage of units, often 30 to 50%, depending on the state, to be reserved for Bumi Putera buyers, often at a Bumi discount of 5 to 15% of the lease price. So inside a brand new condo or housing estate, certain units are flagged as Bumi Lots. The land itself isn't reserved the way MRL is. The unit is, by sale condition, by the developer's marketing, and by an endorsement on the title document. For a foreign buyer or a non-Bumi Malaysian, at the moment you look at it, a Bumi Lot is also closed. But, and this is the difference from MRL, that status isn't necessarily permanent. How a Bumi Lot gets released. Here's where Bumi Lots get interesting. The Bumi designation can be released. The process. After a defined holding period, say 6 months or a year, depending on the state, if the developer cannot find a Bumi buyer for a particular unit, the developer can apply to the state government to release that unit from its Bumi status. There's a fee, there's paperwork. The state approves or doesn't. Once released, the unit becomes ordinary. It can then, in most cases, be sold to non-Bumi buyers. Whether that includes foreigners depends on the state and on the unit clearing the state's foreign buyer minimum price. Some states allow released Bumi lots to go to foreigners, others permit only non-Bumi Malaysians. What it means for you. If you're shown a released Bumi lot as a foreign buyer, the question is no longer, can a non-Bumi own this? Can a non-citizen own this in this state? Two different questions. Both must be answered yes in writing before you pay anything. Right, here are the two on one screen. Because the differences matter. Malay Reserved Land, permanent, constitutional, closed to non-Malays. No price unlocks it. No release process you can use. The Bumi Lot, not permanent. State policy. Closed to non-Bumi at first sale, but releasable after a holding period by the developer applying to the state. Whether that release helps a foreigner depends on the state. Same word on a property listing. Restricted, completely different consequences. Mistake one for the other, and you either lose a deposit on something that was never available or walk away from something that could have been negotiated. Reading the title is how you tell them apart. Third, reading the title and where the red flags actually hide. Every Malaysian property has a title document, and the entire question of whether you can legally own it lives on a handful of lines on that document. So let's look at where to read. At the top, the title type, Hak Milik Tetap, freehold, Pajakan leasehold, Garant for individual title, strata for a unit in a high-rise. That tells you the form of ownership. Below that, the registered owner, the lot number, the survey area. Standard. And then the crucial section, Sekatan Kepentingan, restrictions in interest. This is where any restriction on transferring or charging the property is spelled out. A Bumi designation lives here. A consent requirement lives here. The hint of any unusual rule lives here. And finally, any specific stamps or endorsements on the document. A Malay Reserved Land marking, in particular, will usually be unmistakable. A separate stamp often in red, in Malay. So when your lawyer hands you the title, or ideally before you've even paid a booking fee, these are the 4 specific terms to scan for. 1. Tanah Rizab Melayu, Malay Reserved Land. If you see this, stop. The category is closed. Walk away. 2. Hak Bumi Putera or Pegangan Bumi Putera, Bumi designated. The release question opens up here. Get the release approval document or walk. 3. Anything in the Sekatan Kepentingan, restrictions in interest, section that says transfers need the consent of the state authority. Standard state consent under section 433B, which we covered in episode 6, is normal. But any unusual additional consent requirement needs scrutiny. 4. Express conditions on use. What the land can legally be used for. Agricultural titled land you intend to put a house on isn't a foreign ownership problem. It's a land use problem, and it can still kill the deal. 4 lines on a piece of paper, worth more than any verbal advice anyone will give you. 4th, a story. Composite, built from the patterns I keep seeing in foreign buyer files. Let me tell you a composite story, built from the patterns I keep seeing in foreign buyer cases. A buyer, let's call him James, is looking for a house in a state with a strong expat community. He's working with an agent who's friendly, helpful, well-spoken. The listing is a beautiful semi-detached leafy street, 580,000 ringgit, below the foreign minimum for that state. But the agent reassures him, don't worry, plenty of foreigners buy here, it'll be fine. James signs the booking form, pays the 10,000 ringgit booking fee, excited, tells his family. A week later, his appointed lawyer sends a short email. I've reviewed the title. There's a Malay reservation stamp on the document. This property cannot be transferred to a non-Malay buyer. 1 sentence. The next month is spent recovering the deposit. The booking form had a refund clause, most do, but it wasn't automatic. Letters, pressure. Eventually, a partial refund minus administration fees. Time lost, 2 months. Money lost, low 5 figures. Trust in the agent, gone. What James missed, the agent never showed him the title. James never asked. The lawyer was appointed only after the booking form was signed. The fix is brutally simple. Title check, before booking fee, every time, without exception. 5th, Brian's checklist. Before you sign anything, so here are the 5 checks. Some are for your lawyer, some are for you. All of them happen before any money moves. 1. Demand a copy of the title document, gerund, strata title, whatever it is, before you sign the booking form. Not after, before. 2. Have your lawyer specifically confirm, in writing, that the property is not Malay Reserved Land and not Bumi designated. A one-line email from them is enough. Just get it in writing. 3. If it is a released Bumi Lot, get the state's release approval document. The release exists or it doesn't. 4. Read the Sekatan Kepentingan, the restrictions in interest. Your lawyer translates anything you don't understand. Any restriction you can't explain to a friend, you don't sign under. 5. Make consent a condition precedent in your sale and purchase agreement, just as we covered in episode 6. So if anything later proves wrong, the deposit comes back automatically. The title document is a small piece of paper, and it decides completely whether the property you want is actually available to you. Reading it, really reading it, before any money changes hands. That is the cheapest insurance in the entire Malaysian property process. And the agents who don't show it to you are exactly the ones to be careful of. Before you go, here's what's coming next. Episode 10, The Foreigner Mortgage, specifically how Malaysian banks actually decide what they'll lend you. It's not a number on a brochure, it's a scorecard most agents will never show you. Loan to value by visa status, interest rate ranges in 2026, why two specific banks are the cross-border default for foreign buyers, and the protection layer almost everyone skips. If you'll be financing your purchase, episode 10 is the one. Subscribe so it reaches you. 2 doors won't open. Malay Reserved Land permanently. Bumi Lots until they're released, and in some states never to foreigners. The title document is where you find out, and the only safe time to find out is before you've paid anything. Stay curious, stay careful. Brian out. See you in the next video.